Okay guys, welcome back. We are still in the same book here, Simple Numbers Straight Talk by Greg Crabtree. We are now into Chapter 3. We're going to do Part 1. This will be a two-part video again. Chapter 3, Labor Productivity, Your Key to Surviving the Black Hole. So as I take my notes, and I encourage you to do the same, when I take notes, don't necessarily write down every word I say, but write down maybe what comes to mind when you hear me talk or ramble on, as it could be sometimes. What are the things that come to mind? So some of my things that came to my mind, I put it next to it for observation, and then I kind of go later, I can check it off when I've answered my own observation here. So one thing he talks about in labor productivity is nothing of value happens without labor productivity or labor dollars. He says, I prefer to count labor dollars, not just counting heads. That's a good point. Just because they're there doesn't mean they're actually making you money. We got a good example of this one too. Okay, talks about what is my gross profit per labor dollar. I couldn't quite answer that question because I haven't heard it asked that way. But I look at it as what is my profit per person I have. Okay, so I can figure that out through my gross margins. But that really also depends on what kind of service that I'm selling. For example, in pressure washing, we can do truck washing, which is big tractor trailers, semi-trucks. We could do house washing, washing the exterior of a home. We can wash apartment buildings. We wash parking garages. We wash concrete from like bank and drive-throughs to big entertainment areas. We have other services we do as well, but all those kind of things bring in different amounts of money per hour. As a rule of thumb, the harder the job is, the typically you charge more. Okay, or the bigger the problem that it solves. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it solves the problem. People may not want it. Okay, so in that, the ones that are the easiest, people may not see as a big problem and don't really need it solved because they can do it themselves. That's just a little side note nugget there. So when I'm out truck washing, I look at the total amount I bring in. I divide that by how many crew hours it took me to do it. Then I can get revenue per crew hour. And since I have a two-person crew, typically I divide it by 2. Now I have revenue per hour. Okay, so looking at evaluating services, I need to try to figure out what are my higher revenue per hours. But also, this is a big part. This is what got me earlier. Is my costs per hour as well, or cost to do the job. We all summarized that in the earlier chapters in our gross profit or our costs of goods sold. Now we try to stick to 36.8 on an average for our cost per goods sold, which is a gross profit of, what is that? 62% gross profit. It may sound pretty good. Some companies do better, some do worse. So we've certainly done worse. We haven't really done much better yet. We kind of keep to a sales stew, but some of the services we're offering as we added new services this year. I won't go into detail, but our goal is to try to bring that gross COGS number down to bring our gross profit up. And here's one of the part of those things is understanding labor productivity and costs involved in this, which reminds me of a funny farmer story. Okay, so imagine I saw this farmer. This is a story. I do see farmers all the time, but I saw someone selling watermelon in the back of a pickup truck here along the road. We see that a lot of times, during harvest times. People have their own gardens. They're selling back of this truck. So I go up there. This is just a story, and I noticed these big, tasty-looking watermelons. And you can tell the ones that have the whiter spots on the sides, been sitting down a little longer, actually a little sweeter, a little tidbit there. But so they're selling watermelons, get this, for $1. No way. Basketball-sized watermelons for $1. I'm like, this is a great deal. I'm asking the farmer, holy moly, how can you sell these things so cheap? You must be like some sort of rocket science, right? It's free labor, free soil. That doesn't happen. But how does he sell them for $1? I asked him, how are you doing this for $1? And he goes, well, actually, I'm losing money every time I sell one. But I'm going to make it up in volume. That's a funny joke. Maybe you've heard it before. That means is if I'm losing money and doing the product at this level, if I take it to the next level, I'm still losing money. But I'm actually losing money faster. Here's an example. So we scaled up. We were going to expand outside of our city limits to about an hour east of us, to a town called Kansas City. Much larger than our smaller town. Golly, about 6 times as larger. Plus, with a bigger population, people who are in our target market. Understanding your customer avatar, we'll discuss it a little bit later. But in this example, if I had more sales, it would cure my problems. We've heard that before. More sales will solve your problems. So in doing so, I had to have more technicians. I needed more labor. I needed more trucks. It's more equipment. And and then of course they needed more marketing. Different example, not necessarily used in cost of goods sold, but understand there is an actual cost when I try to ramp up more sales. What I didn't understand is the target service I was going for, I was actually not profitable in. How in the world can that be? I looked at my revenue per hour. That was great revenue per hour. But what I found out is high labor costs because I was doing a job with 2 people. And I found out later on what saved us is that we could cut our labor in half by doing it with 1 person. Almost half, not exactly. We made sure, of course, it was safe, made sure we still had great quality. Also made sure good quality of life for our technicians. But we had to find out is that we were paying so much labor per hour. Just because we increased our sales, I increased the headache. My profit just kept skipping along a lake, just like a rock does, and eventually goes boop, below the surface, right? So just because we increased our sales did not necessarily mean we increased our profit. I had to have a manager to actually manage those people and all of the equipment and everything else. So I took money out of my company to try to ramp up in sales, and I went like this and about lost it all. That's just one of the small things in there. So understanding your profit per labor is a big part of that. Now, also brought up a really interesting example. With big star here, my major observation here. Job costing. Are all my jobs profitable? That's a simple example. Maybe I should share that sometime of what that sheet looks like. Well, my coach just shared that with me. But I need to have different accounts on here that we serve in our truck washing. I have to make sure that those jobs are actually profitable. Because if I just do a whole bunch more, here's an example. We've got one account, one customer that has close to 16 different lots, okay, all around the state within about a 3-hour radius. Sounds great that we've added a bunch more lots and a bunch more locations, and we're not cleaning the trucks. We're pretty good at cleaning the trucks, the same kind of trucks every location, so we're getting real familiar with that. But the question is, I know in my head I'm doing revenue per hour, it's lower, but we're doing a lot more of the work. And then they want us to maybe increase our frequency to double that. So now servicing all these locations more times per month. But if I do more work that's maybe profitable, maybe not, am I actually in a better position? Sounds great. My techs will love it. They're going to get more hours. I might even need to hire more technicians. Do you see the kind of cycle I could be getting into? Is more sales actually going to be helpful for me? If I'm not profitable right now, then adding more to that, I'm actually going to be in a worse situation. That sounds crazy to me, but he actually did articulate it really well in the book. If you can see these pretty charts, right? Gosh, I hope I didn't make anybody dizzy doing it that fast. I apologize. He used 2 different companies here. So he showed this company here, company A. This is before he starts coaching this person, and then afterwards. He shows, look at the sales. We started out at this level, went clear up to like $4 million a year. $4 million a year in pressure washing. That's a pretty big company, right? But at the very bottom here, you see the profitability line, okay, and also equity. Equity is you have your expenses, you have what you own minus what your expenses. Equity, also called a net worth. Cash is also part of that equity. In this company example, they doubled and tripled their sales, but their equity or cash in a bank stayed the same because they didn't have profit the whole way through. This is what got me going, oh no. Because look at the revenue. It went up and then went down. And this is when the coach said I started coaching them. I'm like, what kind of coach is taking their sales down? You thought they made it more inspirational. More sales, more money, more problems. Oh, that's kind of funny. Now it actually makes sense. But more sales didn't solve the problem. What this coach had them do was ratchet down their sales. Take sales down lower? What did that mean? This is what they said they found out. They made the classic mistake of adding labor to support their growth, but failed to get enough of an increase in gross profit to drive towards profitability. Classic mistake. Hey, I'm a classical kind of guy, right? They had to go back, fix the functional areas that weren't working, and look at the business anew. They had an inefficient field labor. Okay, technicians taking too long. I got a great example. My techs wanted more hours and things got a little slower, so they figured out if they went slower, they got more hours. Or they came back to the shop and started playing basketball, still punched in because they needed hours. Sounded good for them, terrible for us. So they worked on efficiency. They had people on payroll who were not billable, meaning more technicians, more babysitters sometimes, right? More managers, we'll call it that way. Sounds way more responsible than babysitters. And then salespeople who are constantly close to but never above the sales goal. Why? Because they're wasting time chasing the wrong customers. Wrong customers? You mean I don't want everyone to buy? No. I tell you what, when I found out when I lower my prices, I got more customers. And what I got was lower priced customers and also lower quality customers. If I'm washing a house, let's say for $100, that sounds pretty good maybe. But if I'm washing a house for $1,000, sounds way better, right? Well, there's not as many $1,000 customers out there as there could be at $100 per hour ones. Here's what I found out when I washed $100 per hour houses. At first, not anymore. They were old houses. They had never been washed before. Sometimes the siding was barely hanging on. And sometimes when I washed a house with soft washing, which means low pressure and soaps to clean, I'm not using high pressure, the siding would just start flapping in the wind like the American flag. Why? Because they're old houses. They hadn't been taken care of. And then they were the hardest customers to please. Why doesn't my house look brand new? It's never been cleaned before. It's 50 years old. It should be brand new because I'm paying you $100. Son of a gun. But then I get into $1,000 house washes, and guess what I got? Well-kept, maintained homes. People can afford to do home maintenance. And when I washed their house, you know what they did? Thank you so much, and gave me a check, and then I was done. What? So sometimes understand your customer avatar, who's your target market, understand their needs, and what. That's a big part too. That's another good nugget right there. But by understanding your avatar, then you understand who isn't your customer. One book I read, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, another great book. I'll have to do that one here too. He talked about understanding the differences between transactional customers and relationship customers. This is a nugget. Get ready to write it down. Transactional customers are those who say, can you do it any cheaper? Or I get a coupon in the mail and that's the one I'm going to go hire because I got a coupon for. I'll drive across town to save me 2 cents per gallon on fuel because it's worth it to me to save 2 cents and spend $10. That's a personal story of somebody else. I'm not going to say their name. The transactional is always looking for the best deal. We were looking for the best deal. We had a big truck wash account. It would have been about $140,000 a year. And when I was asking him, why would you like an estimate? What does he want to improve? Nothing. They do a good job. We just want it done cheaper. And after asking more questions, they had done this every year, looking for someone cheaper. Can you imagine if you had ramped up specialty tools and equipment, changed all your scheduling for your technicians just to make this account work because you're making good money, but they want it done cheaper. So they don't care about you. They don't care about the relationship. They just care about the dollar hollers, right? Making it cheaper, which is why the other type of customer is a relationship dominant. This is someone who cares about the quality done because they care about their own stuff. They also care that they can trust someone to solve this problem for them in the future. They're building, hence the word relationship. Relationship dominant people understand that if I want a quality solution, I pay a quality price. Okay? Long-term solution, higher value, they understand the higher price. And in this book, E-Myth, it talked about ruling out those transactional customers. I had transactional customers. That one example I showed you was another transactional customer. I also have relationship dominant customers, and they're actually my favorites. Absolute favorites. Why? Because they understand they want a good quality job done. They're going to hire a good quality company. And you know what I do for them? Anything it takes. We'll do additional time on cleaning because we know it's going to keep this customer happy, and they know in return what we charge them is higher than our transactional customers, and we love them. We can count on them, and they keep actually asking, can you do this too now? We're adding more services. Hey, during COVID, could you clean our 10-story building during COVID when everything else was slow, but they know they wanted us to stay busy, so we cleaned a building for $20,000. Hey, that's pretty good, right? Those are things that relationship dominant customers do. And so if your sales staff is running the race to the wrong customer, how come I can't close this $100 house wash? Maybe it's the wrong kind of customer. You need to understand your own customer avatar. That's a great example. Another book just came to mind and I just now forgot it. But as these examples pop in my head, that's good to understand. So, 5-hour work week. That's right. That's another good one with the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. Real quickly in a nutshell, 80%, 20%. Remember that 80-20 rule? Pareto principle. They found out, this principle can be applied to a lot of things, by the way, and it works out. This person found out, Tim Harris, that's right, Tim Harris, also a kickboxer too, I believe. He found out that 80% of his income came from 20% of his clients. 80% of his income came from 20% of his clients. On the flip side, 20% of his customers are also his biggest headache. So like that, reverse it. 80% of his customers cause the biggest headaches. So what he found out is if I can just focus on the 20% that bring in the 80% of income, I'm going to also save me basically 80% of my time, because that other small portion is causing more and more problems for the less money than if I can focus on the bigger customers. So the example of our customers we love, there are 20%ers. And we love them. If I can focus 80 more time on getting more customers like that, we call that our Dream 100, then all of a sudden, I may be solving more problems. This is a good nugget for myself right here. But I have to make sure if I'm profitable. If they love me just because I'm cheap and almost free, not a good relationship. Understanding the numbers. That's what we're talking about here. Get back on track. One last thing here. Oh, I love this one. Okay, so today is actually Super Bowl Sunday, and Chiefs and 49ers are getting ready to play here in a couple hours, but I wanted to film this here. To be honest, I don't watch a lot of sports, so my analogy could be wrong, but I'm going to go for the book said, okay, make it easier. All my friends who may be watching this, you can understand this. A salary cap in football. Okay, as some people say, don't get me started, okay? Well, you don't have to get me started much because I don't know much about it. But a salary cap in football is very, very interesting. This is what it talks about, understanding how much you can pay for labor. This also helps us solve some of my problems too in our company. This is the example, okay, this is their example. Back in 2003, the Patriots had Larry Milloy, a free safety, took him to the Super Bowl, right, one of the teams there. But then after the Super Bowl, like everyone else, they said, hey, I think we need to be making more money, but under the salary cap of right now, at $240 million a year, not everyone can get a raise. So what happens was they cut him. All right, they let him go. And they went back to drafting, drafted another guy, Wilson, and he also took them to the Super Bowl as well, along with the people on the team. Don't get me wrong, okay? But what they did is when they drafted him at the minimum wage. Minimum wage for football players? No way. Minimum wage of $400,000 for 4 years. $100,000 a year. They drafted a young person, paid him in the middle because he had really brought minimal value to the team yet, trained them, got them to the Super Bowl, and when his contract came up, when he could be a free agent, he asked for more money. What happened? They let him go as well. Why? Because you have to understand sometimes your company really can't afford to keep everybody. I know this sucks, and this is for me. Some of our team have gone on to do amazing things in their dream fields. We've got people who went on to be a certified accountants. We've got attorney. We've got sports medicine, physical therapist person. We've got graphic designers. We've got, golly, there's a lot of great people who came through my company. And at that time, the wage was right for them at their development level. But luckily, we had a training system. At that time, it was mainly me training everybody. And I repeated my stories over and over again, shared pictures, used every tool I can to train and develop them to a higher value person. And their value was producing out than their labor dollar was costing me. And it created this thing called profit. But like you see in the football, why can't they keep everybody all the time? The football, NFL, they can only spend so much per dollar. I know, just to make all the teams competitive. But how these teams come back and win over and over again, we're going to see if the Chiefs can do it again, is do they have a system in place to train new people to bring them up to value? Because they can't, everybody's pay can't go up. They can only go so much. Same way with ours. Just because someone comes to me and says, I've got to make $30 an hour just so I have my quality of life. But if I look at my jobs and I look at the profit margin and it goes like this, wrong way, that's the wrong way for that decision. So in this example, and there's a lot more things to come from it, he's going to determining your salary gap, okay? That's we're going to kind of go into the next video here. But to sign off on that one, guys, I hope the Chiefs win. I hope the 49ers win. I hope the right team wins because I've got chip and dip. I'm super excited for the commercials. But guys, stay tuned for the, chapter 3 of the next part 2 of chapter 3. And we're going to determine our labor salary to see how it's right for our company. So see you next time.